Fabulous second graders. We are continuing with Geraldine McCaughrean's The Canterbury Tales. So Chaucer and a bunch of pilgrims are on their way to the city of Canterbury in England. And because the ride is taking very long, since they're riding horses, they decided to have a storytelling competition along the way. And so as I read the stories, scholars, you are to think about which one would you vote for if you were going on this pilgrimage. And the first tale is being told by the knight, so it's often known as the Knight's Tale. Geraldine McCaughrean gave it a title, Chivalry and Rivalry. So chivalry are those three virtues for the knights: bravery, honor, and courtly love. And rivalry means competing against each other. So here's the Knight's Tale. Below the smoking walls of Thebes, 2,000 men grappled sword to sword and hand to hand. The battle between the forces of King Creon and the troops of Duke Theseus was long, fierce, and bloody. And when it was over, when Creon's army had been put to flight, the ground was carpeted with fallen soldiers. Athenian soldiers, searching the battlefield for their own wounded companions, found two young knights lying side by side. That'd be these guys. But as they stepped across the two bodies, one stirred, groaned, and opened his eyes. "Archite, cousin, where are you?" he whispered. His companion was not dead either. Both were carried as prisoners to the tent of Duke Theseus. "Take them to Athens and lock them in the prison tower of my palace," said the Duke. Despite the cold stones and the hard floor of their tower-top prison, both Archite and his cousin Palamon gradually recovered from their wounds. Their devoted friendship made the passing days, weeks, and months bearable, though they both grew dreadfully bored. The narrow slit, which let in the only sunlight they ever saw, overlooked the Duke's garden. Every day they would take it in turns to balance on a stool and gaze down at the flowers and at the gardener pruning the rose trees. One day there was a new visitor to the garden. Palamon was balancing on the stool at the time, and his feet slipped and almost tipped it over. "Oh, Archite!" he exclaimed. "I never realized until this moment why I was born. Now I've seen her. Oh, she is the reason. Zeus, she can't be flesh and blood. She must be an angel." "Get down. It's my turn for the stool," said Archite, and he took Palamon's place. Down in the garden, Duke Theseus's young sister-in-law, Emily, had come to gather flowers in a wicker basket. She sang as she picked them, and the flowers all seemed to turn up their faces toward her and to faint at the touch of her hand. That'd be the Lady Emily. "Oh, lady, I'll wear your favor until the day I die," Archite said breathlessly to himself. Palamon pulled the stool away, and both fell in a heap to the floor. "What? Are you making fun of me, Archite? It's serious. I'm in love with her." "You? You didn't even think she was human. I'm the one who loves her." You cuckoo! Where are your vows of lifelong friendship now? The first chance you get, you stab me in the back. You viper, you thieving snake." This undignified scene was interrupted by the jailer bringing in their one frugal, small meal of the day. "Oh, what's this, puppies?" he said, setting down the tray. "Is the cell getting too small for the two of you? Well, I've got news for whichever one of you is Sir Archite. Sir Archite has a friend in Athens, it would appear, and this friend has spoken to Duke Theseus and won your freedom. You can leave tomorrow." Archite stared. Palamon got to his feet. "Cousin," he said, "in all our lives we've never been parted. Is there no message for me, jailer? Has no one asked for my freedom?" "Nope, you stay. And you, Sir Archite, you must be out of this land by sunset tomorrow. On pain of death, you are forbidden to return. Leave the country? Leave Athens? But I don't want to go, protested Archite. You go instead of me, Palamon. If I'm banished from Athens, I'll never see her again. Perhaps he saw, or perhaps he just imagined a smile playing on Palamon's lips. Anyway, the two cousins, who all life long had been inseparable, barely spoke during that last night in the tower. Next week, Palamon was still a captive, balancing all day on the stool to watch for Emily. Far away, his cousin sat in his own house, the windows and doors all shut as if it were a prison, for he was pining for Emily. Who do you think was better off? Mused the knight, thoughtlessly interrupting his own story. Was it the man in prison or the man in exile? Lord love you, have you no spark of wit? Demanded the lady that I recognized from the night before by the size of her enormous hat. If the boy in exile had 1/2 of a brain, he'd disguise himself and go back to Athens. If all he can do is sit around and mope, he doesn't deserve the woman. Yes, well, said the knight, rather taken aback by the strength of her feelings. That's just what happened. Archite grew a beard, dressed as an Athenian, and took work as a servant in the very house where Emily lived. The thought of seeing her again quite outweighed the threat of death if he were discovered inside Athens. And every day he saw her, every day he took orders from her lips, every day he was able to reach out and touch the chair where she had sat or the glass from which she had drunk. He thought he would be happy forever. He was happy for just a week. Then the questions began to creep into his mind. What good is this? How is this better than being in prison? How can a servant speak of love to the sister-in-law of Duke Theseus? So he fell to brooding, chewing on his pillow at night, cursing the hour he was born. Just 2 hours after the jailer forgot to lock the prison tower, Palamon found himself free, creeping through the Athenian woods, his heart in his mouth, his life in the balance. Now's my only chance, he thought. I'll find the Lady Emily and take her away to my own country. The rustling of leaves sent him bolting like a rabbit into the bole of a hollow tree. He squatted down low, despising his thumping heart and despising his fate for bringing such an honorable knight to such a situation. The approaching footsteps halted beside the tree, and Palamon held his breath. Surely the Duke's men weren't searching for him yet. Peeping through a knothole, he could see a man sitting dejectedly among the spreading roots, throwing pebbles at his own boots. What's the use? The man was muttering. I might just as well be rotting in prison with Palamon. You asp! You wolf in sheep's clothing! Palamon flung himself out of the tree and grabbed Archite by the beard. What are you doing back here to prowl around the Lady Emily? Don't you talk about my mistress like that, you convict, you escaped prisoner. I'm an honorable knight, Palamon maintained, despite the hammer blows Archite was raining on his head. I love Emily far more than you do. Heart's blood, death's too good for you, you traitor to all things honorable. Goat, skunk, rat. As they pranced, grunting through the trees, their arms locked fast around one another. A wolfhound came barking around their legs excitedly, and then there was another, and another, and another, until the clearing was filled with dogs. Into the melee burst a hunting party on horseback, and at its head was Duke Theseus himself. Part those men and bring them here. One of them is Emily's servant. The other looks like one of Creon's soldiers. He's an escaped convict, Archite shouted. Well, he's Archite, banished on the pain of death, called Palamon. See, cousin, I can play as dirty as you can. Theseus laughed in disbelief. Is this the devoted twosome we took prisoner at Thebes? Bosom friends promised never to be parted? In the name of all that's friendly, what is this about? Archite and Palamon wiped their muddy faces and rubbed their bruised eyes. Then both together, they said, Her! Emily had come riding into the clearing on a white mare. She wore a blue mantle, blue hood, and even the hounds fell back whimpering at the sight of her. Tomorrow, scholars will find out if either Palamon or Archite get the Lady Emily, or if they're both punished with death, like King or Duke Theseus had promised. We'll see. See you tomorrow.